It is the nature of all-inclusive awakened mind that it is not apparent, for it transcends that which is apparent. It is not empty, for it transcends that which is empty. It is not existent, for it has no substance or characteristics. Nor is it non-existent, for it permeates all samsara and nirvana. Neither existent nor non-existent, it is primordial, basic space, spontaneous and uniform, not subject to extremes or division, and without substance, foundation, or underlying basis. Uninterrupted awareness is the expanse of awakened mind. Without transition or change, the sky of basic space is timelessly and infinitely extensive. Naturally occurring timeless awareness, which has ultimate meaning in that nothing compares to it, is subsumed within the single sphere of being, unborn and unceasing. Indeterminate and all-pervasive, it is absolutely without limiting extremes. And that is Longchenpa, as we've been continuing with the precious treasury of the basic space of phenomena. And you can find that book on Amazon. There's a link at the show notes. I hope your recovery is going well, and your healing is going well, and that your practice is happening and going according to, well, it's going to go according to the effort that we put in and the time and the heart and everything that we understand, everything that we can do to apply ourselves and understand. And in this insight tradition, which is not really knocking it, I just want to inform, which is my position, to make sure that you're aware that this isn't really necessarily Buddhism. It isn't necessarily the only kind. If it is a Buddhism, it isn't really a specifically more important kind of Buddhism. It has value and it's great. And there's a lot of benefit to such practice. But there are differences in the way these things are understood. And the reason why we're talking about this today is because this is where we come to with practices of a Bodhisattva number 29. Vipassana, perfectly endowed with shamatha, completely conquers all afflictions. To cultivate meditative stability that transcends the four formless states is the practice of a Bodhisattva. Now, a lama, a Tibetan Buddhist term for teacher, could spend quite a bit of time on this, and I'm not 100% willing to take it further than our general sort of approach. But I just want to let you know this could get pretty deep. All of these can, but this one in particular, because the concept and the term of what is Vipassana and what is shamatha, and obviously we're to conquer all afflictions, means to conquer attachment, to conquer dualism, to conquer terror of non-referential timeless awareness that transcends the four formless states. And these also have several views and adaptations as you go up the ladder of complexity in the systems of Dharma thinking. And then all of these obviously are the practice. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. So let's talk first about Vipassana, concentration that leads to awareness. Awareness that leads to insight. Insight that leads to more insight that works on four levels, which aren't necessarily very important. And this is the kind of thing that if you get into the four absorptions, that you can go deep into Tantra, you can go deep into Dzogchen. And unless you're a really advanced practitioner who wants to go into those deeper energy level states, which incidentally are required to transcend and to become liberated with a rainbow body into Buddhahood in this very existence. So, or at any time, for it to happen, for it to literally happen, this requires extensive training on much deeper levels that we could really even imagine until we've been trying to, kind of calm down and watch our mind for some years, some time, especially those of us who are a little bit dysregulated, as we've been discussing for some time since I discovered what my addiction is really about and what my recovery is really about, and when I wrote Compassionate Recovery. But Vipassana can be seen as different things, and I have an article open on it, and I could go into detail with this, but you don't care as much, really, as I do about those details. What you care about is how does this apply to your recovery in your life right now. So let me just say it, super simple. Vipassana, we're focusing. You might focus in different ways on different things, but typically these practices are to scan the body. And then we scan the body, and when we become aware of the insubstantiality of a thing called a body, ultimately we become aware of the insubstantiality of a thing called a self on down. That's not the end, see, of the story. So you'd get the impression from a lot of these. There's so much available spiritually, quote unquote, and there's so much garbage. I mean, I can't really go on about that too much. All I can talk about is what the real deal is. And, the real deal is that you can use focus and concentration as a starting point. Ultimately, we let go of a subject that focuses on an object, all right? But in the context of these, if you go way back into the earlier part of the teachings, say in the Theravada, and please correct me if I'm wrong in this. In my experience and understanding of said style of Buddhist thinking and teaching, the idea is the awareness and the insight develops as the result of the practices of restriction to our body, speech, and mind, our behavior, our activities, to generate a calm and stable state as such that we can focus. And the calm state is the shamatha, and the calm state supports the focus, and the focus supports the calm state. This is really many, many years of practice to work with that. But it depends on where you're at, what your capacity is, and what your previous karma and exposure to teachings and spiritual development might be, because there are different layers and levels to the totality of the explanation. When we look at this from kind of like pulling it back, or a more macro perspective, awareness in and of itself and integration with awareness such that nothing hooks us. We are unhooked and unable to be hooked ever again. And in order to get into this kind of state, we have to practice with a teacher who will guide us, and written instructions and oral transmissions and energy transmissions and dedication and devotion to understand this. You can go to a 10-day Vipassana retreat. You can go to these. I've talked about these over the years. You can do this kind of work. It isn't my cup of tea. They don't like yoga. They don't want you to move around. They don't want you to do anything else or think about anything else. That doesn't work for me. It's great. I'm saying is that there's a different approach. There's another approach of utilizing the same type of idea. And so we have the idea of developing a practice of Vipassana, which is, to be aware, to be present. Let's say in this sense, how we're going to use it is to be present. But to be present of what? Here's a practice for you. Spend 80% of your energy for 15 seconds, focusing on the totality of your experience. You can kind of work with that for a second. So I was doing this again recently, and we got this one, I think 2010, we got that one from a retreat we were on. But it's a good way to kind of be in the body of sutra teaching, to embody sutra teaching, which is in where this Theravada and where this insight meditation is drawn from and derived from, is to sit still, be mindful, watch your moves, don't do negative things. And to ultimately develop an insight and an awareness, which will lead you through these 4 states, or these 4 jhanas, or later called, 4 absorptions, and different levels of complexity in those. But in the Mahayana path, in the path of insight, where our insight is into compassion. And so if we think of shamatha, this cold, this I said cold, it was a bit of a Freudian slip, because this calm, but it is kind of a cold state, It's a calm state. It's just like purely empty, void. But we can't rest and hang out in the void. Don't stay in the void. Dharma is not about the void. It's about the void, but it's not just about the void. So don't just go, okay, I've had a moment of the void and I'm therefore a guru. Don't be dumb. Okay, great. It gives you insight. Use it. Keep developing. There's so much to development. There's so much to development beyond the psychology of Western society. There's so much to development of the mind in Dharma teachings of yogis who've been meditating for centuries. There's so much that we don't know. So please don't be mistaken and do some spiritual bypassing trick that I talk about. There's a chapter in Compassion Recovery on that. And I feel like it's really easy to go, oh, I just got to get the calm state. Oh, I just got to calm my mind down. Oh, I just got to stop my thoughts. Don't stop your thoughts. You can't stop your thoughts. You might think you're stopping your thoughts, but they're always coming back. And if you really wedge yourself in between thoughts, you can fall into a formless realm, etc. It's not good. It's not the deal. All right. So what we want to do is when we develop this calm state, as addicts, we can't become addicted to the calm state. We have to be able to deal with our energy as it arises. And it arises intensely. It arises, say for me, it arises beyond my control. It arises without warning. It arises more quickly and more sharply than I want it to. And that arising can be into the hypomanic or the hypermanic. Either way that you look, if you're going into speeding up or slowing down into hyper, if we're falling out of our window of tolerance, this is the point. We've got to be able to work with this. And if you're the kind of person who says, I can't meditate because when I sit still, it's a live wire, then yes, I understand we need trauma-sensitive situation. We need types of practices and meditations that work for us, that work with support. That's why in Compassion Recovery, I have this whole program written out. It's not a program, but it's a way of following the thinking so that you can kind of work this for yourself. And you can work it into any program that you're working. But so that you can understand the development of these things has to do with mind training. And we're going to teach our minds to be calm in the experience of the totality. So again, we'll return to this meditation. We're going to spend about 80% of our energy focusing on 100% of our total experience in all senses and the mind. Ready? We're going to do that for 15 seconds. When we get into the totality of our experiences, the application of this practice number 29 of the Bodhisattva, the first line, Vipassana, perfectly endowed with shamatha. To be perfectly endowed, insight isn't an end unto itself. Insight is a way to focus the mind and sharply point for a moment. And when we're at that moment, it's absolutely got to be without attachment. It's absolutely got to be perfectly endowed, unhooked in any way. Now, this is the ultimate state. So in the idea of Vipassana perfectly endowed with shamatha means that we're calm and we're jacked. And it's okay because we can respond, not react. We're calm when we're jacked. We can respond and not react. We're calm when we're jacked. We can respond and not react. So let's take a nice deep inhale. Fill it up like a balloon, relax your throat, and with no effort, exhale. Do linger there. Do chill and notice, with 80% of your energy, 100% of the global experience of your being. At any moment, feel free to jump back. Hi! Who is it that is meditating? Who seeks this insight? Who has compassion? That would get deep into our Vipassana and our shamatha. And this completely conquers all afflictions, ultimately. And this is the kind of meditative stability that when you work on the Mahayana level, but we move through these systems in our awareness and our expansion and our scope of the Mahayana, the greater path of all awareness to all beings, all the suffering of all beings, and the capacity of being an understanding of this and still not getting completely derailed and sidetracked and compassion fatigued, hooked, codependent, sucked in. Now, we got to be a Buddha. We got to be a Buddha nature. We got to be a compassion Buddha nature. Om Mani Padme Hung. 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 We can say this mantra. It's a 6-syllable mantra. The 4 formalists move into a different capacity, a different level of understanding. But the idea here that I really am trying to hit home is that beyond these 4 states and these explanations of these 4 levels, these things could kind of happen instantaneously in a finger snap, as they say. Finger snap can be split into 64, something like this. The idea being that it can happen over time, or it can happen instantaneously. But if you're trying to focus on, well, I'm at a level and I'm trying to have this and I'm trying to do that, it's really these things happen spontaneously. Say all the masters. This is something that's not a product of our effort, therefore not a product of our concentration. The true state, as in Longchenpa, true state of timeless awareness, the real condition, as per the Dzogchen teaching, beyond samsara nirvana, samsara - nirvana, beyond this. So to understand this and to get to a position where this is not an intellectual thingamajiggy, but it's like an experiential dealio, where you can kind of get down in it and you can count on it and you know it's the deal, and you know it's not some bullshit that you hyped up for yourself and your ego, then you have a foundation of practice, and this isn't a concentration anymore. We can concentrate for a moment and then we let it go, and we be in this emptiness and fully aware of the scope of suffering of beings, fully committed to the Bodhisattva intention. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Can one person save them all? Well, if you're transcending samsara and nirvana, you see, if you're transcending the 4 jhanas, or the levels of wisdom on the way to full attainment, complete Buddhahood, this is really an expanse that has no limit or boundary of negative and positive, good and bad, right and wrong, inside and outside direction, space carved up into slices. Now, knowing that, what do? Just be really kind and really gentle and really slow and really easy with you. I don't know about you, but boy, I've got a good sledgehammer that I can use to just like on myself emotionally, you know, just like a sledgehammer on a lump of clay. And it's hard to kind of loosen that up. And you do a lot of purification practice, you know, a lot of offering, you know, set up a shrine or an altar of sacred space, get a Buddha statue, things like this, and make offerings all the time, constantly. Put your palms together and say, may I achieve liberation for the total benefit of all beings. And this is massive generation of karma. This is working on the vipassana shamatha integration. It's not 2 separate things. You know, the insight and the wisdom, it's thought of in a different way, but really it's the wisdom that there's really nothing, there's nothing to be afraid of, there's no one to be afraid of it. Well, at the same time, it's all here now and you can see it. But if you want to kind of go beyond the seeing and see with your whole body and your whole being, think of your eyes, ears, you know, all of your senses, your olfactory, you know, your sense of feeling, you know, your taste. Sit back and let it radiate for 15 seconds. Don't use all your energy. Don't strain your groin. Just chill for 15 seconds. Notice. You just drop into this place. Notice, work with this, work with our self-awareness, work with our insights in our recovery, our insights about ourselves, our traumas, our triggers, our stressors, how we can train ourselves, retrain ourselves. We can use the addiction mechanism to train ourselves into compassion, mindfulness, self-compassion. And this is a level of insight and awareness and mind training that really corresponds scientifically, but also corresponds to the Dharma in a super, super cool way. People, I'm preaching it. Read Compassionate Recovery. Ask for it at your bookstore. If you're a clinician, email me, info@compassionaterecovery.us. get you a copy. You can also visit podcast.compassionaterecovery.us to find the show notes and articles and so forth. You guys, I want you to always remember is that this is not about pushing things out and shutting down the mind. It's about being okay with the totality and the understanding that there really is nothing substantial but empty space. Yet within that, we have these shimmering light forms that really look real and yet are totally insubstantial. And yet in the midst of this, beings suffer and need our help. So the development of a bodhisattva's meditation practice to a state of patience, generosity, equanimity, using the work, using the focus, having the samadhi, having the understanding, the insight, so that we can be of maximum service to those about us, and therefore be in recovery and be on the path of total liberation. All right, enough out of me. Happy holidays. December 4th, here, 2022, is my 25 years without a drink. We'll be talking about that next time because I don't celebrate early. Celebrate once that's been achieved. All right, we'll see you next week, everybody. Till then, peace out and namaste.